Recording in progress.
Too much of loudness. Okay, so we'll start with this chapter, that is the sense organ. Now, of course, you know what sense organs are, what is senses and stuff like that. So I am going to skip the first slide, which majorly is the general. But yeah, in some cases, like sense organs, like you need to know that the definition would be that they make us aware of the surrounding environment. So that is the most important part. And of course, you know these five sense organs, which are like sensing what, that also you are very much aware. So I'm skipping that whole part. One thing that you may not be aware is the sense of balance. Does anyone know what would be the sense of balance? How do you get it? We know body movement and stuff is the hunger, thirst, pain, all of this, but what is the sense of balance?
Sir, I think there's some fluid in the ears or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So we will be looking, when we look at the ear structure, we will look at this particular motion, or how does this fluid within the ear helps us balancing our posture. So that we'll see in the sense of balance when we look at the ear structure. We may not be looking at these three structures, rather it's not part of syllabus. Only the eyes and the ears, these two are there within the syllabus. But yeah, the general description still holds true in terms of all the other sense organs. So in general, if we look at the receptors, like receptors are usually specialized tissue or cell sensitive, specific to a stimulus, and which perceives the signal. Usually receptors are protein like molecule or macromolecules or biomolecules, you can say, which will receive the signal and they will translate into certain activity within the cells. So that's what is any specialized tissue or cell sensitive to a specific stimuli. And this stimuli can be like, you know, different stimuli in terms of light, in terms of touch, in terms of pain. All of these can be different stimuli and which will perceive the actual signal. So these receptors are those organs within the sense organs. Sorry, receptors are not the organs, receptors are the structures within the sense organs, and they will be receiving. And like I said, receptors, they are usually made up of proteins or macromolecules within the, or biomolecules within the particular cell. For example, you would know of is like insulin, right? Now this is, I'm talking of the internal stimulus. There are external stimulus like a pinch or something hot surface touching our skin. These are also different signals, and there we have pain receptors. But internally, like let's say for example insulin will go and bind to the insulin receptor, and then it will trigger certain action of lowering the blood glucose and so on, right? So that is something like a receptor and ligand activity. So there are these 5 different types of receptors within our body. Apart from the what we know general receptors, these are related to the sense organs. So these are the 5 ones: mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, thermoreceptors, and phonoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors, they are sensitive to touch or the pressure on the skin due to a mechanical change, right? This includes pricking or pinching, all of these activities as well. Chemoreceptors, they are sensitive to taste of the tongue and the smell of the nose due to a chemical change. So usually these whatever smell or taste we get is due to certain chemicals, right? So they elicit a certain response within either the oral cavity or within the nose, that will send a signal to brain, and brain will recognize it. Okay, this is a sweet taste or this is a sour taste and so on. So that is chemoreceptor. And same is the case with the smell also. From nose, the signal will go to brain, and that will be recognized as a typical smell. Photoreceptors. So these are specifically present in the eye, which contains rod cells and cone cells of the retina. We will see what this is. I assume you would know what retina is. It's the one of the most important structure within your eye, because of which you are able to see. Most of the other structure, they are accessory structure. Retina is the main structure of the eye, because of which you are able to see. And that rod and cone cells, they are sensitive to light, and that is why they are called as photoreceptors. Thermoreceptors, something that is sensitive to heat and cold, or changes in the temperature that are present on the skin, they are thermoreceptors. So skin can have your mechanoreceptors as well as thermoreceptors. That means one particular sense organ can have more than one type of receptor. And the phonoreceptor, which is for the sound or hearing ability, is due to the phonoreceptor. So that is just the basic description of the what kind of receptors are present within the body. We'll skip this part. Yeah. Now I will directly come to the first organ, that is the eye. Now within the eyes, so before we go into the actual structure of the eye, we need to look at, so this is the actual structure of the eye, which will come back later. But where is this structure located? What are the structures within the facial area which are holding onto this eye structure? We'll look at that first. So the first one is the orbits. Now each eye is located in deep sockets or orbits on the front side of the head. Now if you would have ever seen a skull, especially in the biology lab or anywhere else, you will see there are these two openings to the skull on the front side. That is the eye socket, or they are called as eye orbits. Each eye is in the form of a ball and can be rotated with the help of 6 muscles. So this eye structure, which is like a ball-like structure, which is held into these orbits with the help of 6 different types of muscles, that again we will see in the eye structure. And this structure can rotate, and that is when you are able to see from different sides, like from one corner of the eye to the other corner of the eye. That is because of the rotation of that eyeball structure, and that is present within the, so whole of this is located within the orbits, and it's literally like a marble shaped structure, right? Usually what we imagine is like a flat structure, but it is inside, it's completely roundish. Eyelids, again, the upper and lower movable eyelids, they protect the outer surface of the eyes. So there are 2 eyelids within our eye structure, that is the upper one and the lower one, and they can shut out the light completely. If they are closed, obviously they will shut out the light. So this part, each eyelid carries outwardly curved eyelashes, and which prevents the falling of larger particle into eyes. So these eyelashes which are present on the eyelids, the main function is to prevent the entry of larger particles within the eye structure, because like when we talk of the eye structure, these are very, very sensitive to external changes, and also they need to be kept free of any infection. And that is what the function, like some part of protecting of this eye structure is done by the eyelashes, by not allowing the larger particles to fall into it. So that is the eyelids. And then there is eyebrows. These are virtually not a part of the eye as such, but yet they are protective. So they prevent the raindrops or trickling perspiration from getting into the eyes. So whatever is falling down from the forehead directly like downside or towards the eyes, that will be prevented by the eyebrows, and that is why they are present there. Like usually like that's again my observation, or you can also say I'm biased while I'm saying this. Boys, they tend to ignore these parts, because girls, they do makeup sometimes, and that's when they would know all of these things very well. But boys, they usually get mixed up. So there is eyelash, eyelid, eyebrows, and so on, right? So wherever you put, again, that's a part of cosmetics. Wherever you put the kajal, that's actually the eyelash, right? Or you put it at the eyelid. On eyelash you put mascara kind of thing. So there are these different things. And eyebrows, which is on the top, yeah, you just darken it sometimes, like if you are doing a makeup and stuff. So these are the different parts which are external to the eye, yeah. And of course the orbit on which in which the whole of the eye structure is sitting inside. Now the glands, or one of the gland which is present within the eye, is the tear gland. Again, you would know what tear gland is by virtue of like having tears at times. It's also called as, in scientific or biological term, it's called as lacrimal gland, because it secretes the lacrimal fluid, which means the whole of the tear solution. These are located at the upper sideward portion of the orbit. So if you look in this diagram, these ones, so upper, like above the eye structure, and the sideward, so that's where the location is there. And you can see there are these small tube like ducts coming into the eye structure. So these are the lacrimal ducts, bringing the lacrimal secretion from the gland to the eyes. And like I said earlier, this is the eyebrow on the top, these are the eyelashes, the whole of the structure which is going to close down, that will be eyelid, and there is one more eyelid and eyelash on the downside. So that's where these structures are present, and the lacrimal gland is present on the sideward upward part of the eye. There are 6 to 12 ducts of the gland to pour the secretion at the front surface of the eye. So 6 to 12 depending on the eye size and so on. But these ducts, they help to carry out the lacrimal secretion from the gland where it is produced to the eye site. So the movement of the eyelid, which we call simply as blinking, will spread the liquid which mainly serves as the lubricant. Now you might have had misconception of blinking is only for to prevent the light from time to time. Not always. It's also to wipe out whatever microbes or whatever organisms or whatever particles are are present on the surface of the eye. They will be pushed to one side, and that is when at times, especially at night when you wake up, you find a kind of dirt at the corner of the eyes. Yeah.
Morning.
What did I say? Oh, okay. Okay. When you sleep, yeah, after you wake up in the morning. So that is due to this washing of the eye surface. And like these tear glands, they help in kind of secreting this liquid, which will be spread by the eyelid or blinking activity, and that will act as a lubricant. And when this natural lubrication is not happening, that is when you get a eye dryness syndrome, which can be very rough. So if your eyes are getting red, which is one of the indication of the less lubrication of the eye, or which is again the indication of the irritation of the eyes. So that is the lubricant activity of the tear gland. The tear also keep the front surface of the eye clean by washing away the particle. This I already discussed. And also has antiseptic property due to the presence of lysozyme, which kills the germ. Now I assume you would know what lysozymes are, because these are the particles which contains lot of enzymatic activity or enzymatic proteins. They will degrade the bacteria, virus, or whatsoever particles are present on the eye surface, that will be removed, including the germs, due to the antiseptic property of this lacrimal secretion. So the tears in general, apart from water and salt and certain other chemicals, it also secretes certain enzymes these enzymes are responsible for antiseptic activity of the tear. So that is the function of this tear gland. And of course, the function of tears becomes the same. Then lubricate the surface of the eye, wash away the dust particle, help in killing germs, and communicate the emotions. Now, this part is very critical, I must say. Whenever someone wants to be sad and cry, that's when the tears roll down the cheeks, and that is like something communicating emotion. So these are the functions of the tears. I honestly do not know why tears should come out if you are sad. Why they should not come out other situation. I don't know that. What is the connection with the brain? But yes, something like that exists and that you are aware of. So that is the general structure of this tear gland. And just to show you in this diagram, there are other structures as well. Excretory lacrimal ducts. Excretory, they are called so because they are taking out the secretion from the lacrimal gland to the eye. Then there is superior lacrimal canal. So on the other side of the eye structure, there is other lacrimal canal or tubular structure. I guess we will see these parts. Lacrimal sac, which is kind of storage for the lacrimal fluid. Lacrimal punctum, which is kind of a layer or a separation, separating partition between the eye and this nasal cavity. Inferior lacrimal canal, that just the lower lacrimal tube. Nasolacrimal duct, the tube-like structure which connects the lacrimal space or the eye space with the nose and the and the nostrils. Of course, this part you know. So this whole of this thing makes it total lacrimal apparatus. So, but main part of that is the lacrimal gland and this lacrimal duct. And then there are excretory and superior and inferior and so on. So these are the different ducts present within the eye structure. Yeah, I can skip the video part. Now this is the diagram. So I have deliberately kept two diagrams. This is more colorful, so it helps in showing the different layers. And this one is what you will have to draw sometime just as a practice. So that's why I have kept it here. So let's look at the structures which are present within the eye one by one. Now, whenever we are looking at these structures, we are mostly going from outside to the inside. Outside means this is the outside part. So this is what you see in the eye as the black portion, right? And through this, we will be moving towards the back side of the eye or the, again, imagine this as a spherical ball, right? And you have kind of cut through it at the center, and what you are looking at now is the only one side of that central part of the ball. So along the diameter of the ball. So that is what is this structure that you are looking at. So just to before even starting of the description, so that we will follow all these structures very carefully. So this outermost layer, which you can see here, it's kind of just put a line and it has thickened or rather merged with this layer. That is the conjunctiva. Then what you have is cornea. Then you have a kind of cavity. You can see here it is named as anterior cavity. And then iris. Iris is that black structure that you see. For most of the people it's black. Some people might have it colored like gray, green or blue and so on. And then lens. Then there is again an empty cavity, not empty cavity. It's a cavity filled with certain fluid. And then on the last, what you have is the retina. Retina. And these are the three layers of the eye: sclera, outermost, choroid, second, and the retina. So now you know which structures are present where. So then we will look at one by one. So the conjunctiva. It's a thin membrane covering the entire front part of the eye, including, so if you have ever rolled up the eye, you see that very reddish type of tissue, right? That to some extent that part is merged with the conjunctiva, right? So mainly whole of the front part of the eye, which is called conjunctiva, it is a thin membrane and covers the whole front part of the eye. It's continuous with the inner lining of the eyelids. Like I said, this conjunctiva, it's kind of continuous or overlaps with the eyelid inner layers. So that is mostly like I assume it should be epithelial type of tissue, and that is being continued. Yes, Deeta?
So, that semi like conjunctivitis.
Sorry, I couldn't.
She's asking about conjunctivitis. Disease called conjunctivitis.
Yeah, so
What about conjunctivitis?
She's just asking, like,
What is conjunctivitis?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's the okay, fine. It's the inflammation of the conjunctiva due to a viral infection. That is what is conjunctivitis. Now, what happens in conjunctivitis because of the viral particle? Too many viruses, they start growing within the eye structure. It ultimately secretes a lot of what we call as immune activity also increase, because of which the chemical composition of the eye surface changes, and that leads to the irritation or inflammation, and also leads to the dryness to some extent. That is what is conjunctivitis. And again, in conjunctivitis, because of lot of immune reaction, in most of the conjunctivitis cases, you also see a kind of pus formation or that whitish fluid or liquid forming at the corner of the eye. That is because of this. It's an indication of the infection. And a most important point, conjunctiva is actually a single layer of the transparent epithelium, and this transparent does not literally mean you can see through. It also means optically transparent. Optically transparent, I assume you would know this from the physics part, which does not reflect or deflect or do anything with the light. It just allows the light to pass through it. That is the transparent epithelium, and that is the first structure, conjunctiva. Now, does anyone have any doubts so far?
the virus can be anything.
Anything as in any viral particle? Not always. There are specific viruses which grow, like for example, hepatitis can only be caused by hepatitis virus. So that way there are few specific viruses which can cause conjunctivitis.
So,
Yes.
if conjunctivitis is contagious,
Yes, it is contagious. But again, it may not be contagious to the systemic part of the body. It contagious to the eyes. That means, let's say I have conjunctivitis. I touch my hands to my eyes, and then I shake hand with someone, and that person goes and touch to the eyes. Then only it will happen, right? But otherwise, let's say I pass it on to someone, but that person is extremely hygienic and does not touch the hand to the eyes unnecessarily, or then in that case that infection will not occur. Any question? Okay. Now we will be looking at the eyeball. Eyeball is that whole round structure. That's what we call as eyeball. And outermost structure on the front side to that eyeball was the conjunctiva. That's what we looked at. Now, eyeball has three different layers, like I showed you in the diagram also. Sclerotic layer, or it's also called as sclera. The middle one is called as choroid, and the third one, that is the innermost, is called as retina. Now you are going from the outermost layer to the innermost layer. So that means towards the center of the core. And while looking at the structure, you are going from front to the back of the eye. So even in these cases, you will see these layers being present. except the retina. We will see why and where does it go to. But these two layers, especially the choroid and sclera, they have been differentiated into something else on the front part of the eye. But at the back part, they remain intact. So, sclera, that is the outermost layer, it is made up of the tough fibrous tissue and is white in color. So, whatever white part of the eye that you see is actually the sclerotic layer or the sclera, and itself visible through the conjunctiva. That means through the conjunctiva, sclera is very much visible, and the reason why it has to be tough fibrous tissue is because it is going to protect the internal what do we say, parts of the eye, mainly the retina. Like I said, it's the one of the very important part of the eye structure, because of which one person is able to see it, and that is why it has to be protected by the thick fibrous tissue or tough fibrous tissue. It bulges out and becomes transparent in the front region. Front region is again a part of the eye next to the that black circle. So it bulges out. You can see everyone's eyes are little outwardly curved. That is what is bulging out. Becomes transparent in the front region where it covers the colored part of the eye. Colored part of the eye, that means, like I said, eyes, they can have different colors. In terms of, it can be blue, brown, green, gray, or just simply black. And that colored part of the eye is called as cornea. That is the outer, another layer. Below conjunctiva, there is cornea, and that cornea is kind of intact throughout the spherical wall, which is called as sclera. So I will go back to the diagram. So you can see this is the cornea. The label is here. Now this cornea, if you look, it's kind of integrated with this outermost layer, and that is sclera. But when it becomes to the front part of the eye, that part is called as cornea. So only at the bulge of the eye, that is cornea, which is below the conjunctiva, and it continues as the sclera layer, right? So I remember there have been question being asked which like match the pair of these layers which are same throughout the eyeball structure. So cornea and sclera will form that particular pair because they are intact. Just front part, it is called as cornea and it is transparent, and otherwise the outside this front part of the eye, it is white tough fibrous tissue and it is not necessarily transparent, and that is the sclera part. I hope you are following this. So cornea can turn opaque and non-functional in some patients. One of the simplest thing that you would have known is the cataract, which is the growth of the single layer of tissue over the cornea or over your eye structure, so that it gets covered and you start getting blurred vision, right? So this situation can occur based on certain malformations or certain abnormalities within the eye structure. So that is the cornea part. Cornea can remain alive up to 40 hours after the death. So let's say a person is dead, you can still take out that cornea, like earlier the better of course, but it can stay alive up to 40 hours and it can be removed within 4 hours after the death. So it has to be removed within 4 hours for sure, and sure needs to be stored in blood plasma at low temperature so that the metabolic activities of those corneal cell, they that is reduced, and that way they can survive longer, and instantly within 40 hours it needs to be transplanted to the respective person whosoever needs it. So that is the corneal structure within the sclera. Again, any question, anyone? Okay, then the next two layers is the choroid layer, that is the middle layer, which is richly supplied with the blood for providing the nourishment to the eye. Now, obviously, this eye, whole of the eye structure is a type of tissue or is made up of different tissues. So it needs nutrients as well as oxygen, which should be provided by the blood. So that's why this choroid is the layer which is containing lot of blood vessels to provide the nourishment to the whole of the eye structure. It also contains a dark black pigment called melanin, which prevents the reflection of the incoming rays and scattering inside the eyes. Now, this is a very common phenomenon. So again, I'll go back to the diagram. So you can see this choroid is the inner or middle layer, right? Which is kind of doubled here up to the bulge of the eye. Now, it says that this layer is black in the sense due to the presence of melanin, right? I don't know if it is present here. Yeah, here it is shown kind of clearly. Where is the it's not, the label is not there. Choroid is there? No. Sclera, cornea, pupil. Okay, it's not there. But if you see, the retina is this yellowish part, right? Yellowish line. Outside retina, they have shown a very dark layer, and that is something like a choroid. Now, the reason why this has to be present here is because of, so whenever the light passes through, let's say this direction, like the name pupil, the light will pass through this, it will cross conjunctiva, it will cross cornea, and then it will cross this iris structure, it will enter through the lens, it will fall out. But let's say light is coming in angle, so then it will go over, like of course lens will change the direction, but let's say it falls on this. Now that light is not useful at all, because that will not create a signal of anything. So instead, so to this black melanin layer is present. So whatever light is scattered or whatever extra light is coming inside the eye structure, which is not making a signal of the sight, that will be absorbed by these melanin layer, because that's the property of the black body, right? To absorb all the light that is incoming to it. And that is what is the function of this melanin layer present in the present next to the choroid layer. So again, from outside there will be sclera, and inside there will be choroid, and at the inner part of the choroid, that is choroid is of different layers, and the innermost part of the choroid will be made up of melanin pigment, and then within the melanin pigment layer it will be your retina structure. So where is it? Yeah, so it is richly supplied with the blood or blood vessels, and it also contains dark black pigment called melanin, which prevents the reflection of incoming rays and scattering inside the eyes. So whatever extra signal that is being masked completely. Choroid expands to form the ciliary body, or also called a circular muscle, in front of the eye. So these are one type of muscles, ciliary body or ciliary muscles, or they are also called as circular muscles. One type of muscles present in the eye on the front side, which holds the eye structure. You can see this ciliary body is pointed at this. And you can also see choroid layer, which is kind of becoming a little thicker here, and then it extends out into the ciliary muscles or ciliary body. Even if you see it here, ciliary body and muscles, that is the extension of this dark layer, right? So that way, that is the one which is holding the lens structure to some extent. There are other muscles as well, but this is one of them. So that is the extension of this choroid layer. Then the retina layer, this is the innermost sensitive layer and it is sensitive to light, which contains two different types of cells. What we simply call them as rod or rod cells, and cones, that is the cone cells. Now in rod cells, I will come back to these facts because it will be difficult to remember all of this together. But rod cells, they are sensitive to dim light. Dim light means less intensity of light. Let's say whenever you are going in a dark, right, the amount of signal that you receive from a particular object is very less, and that's when these cells, they are active. So rod cells, they are sensitive to dim light, but they do not respond to color, and that is one of the characteristics, because at night these rod cells, they are sensitive to the dim light. At night it becomes difficult to differentiate colors at times, like because it's too dark. So that is a common phenomenon. So that's why they do not respond to color, and they contains the pigment called as rhodopsin, rhodopsin, or it is also called as visual purple, which is present throughout the retina. We will see the function of this rhodopsin also in the later part of this slide. So retina, which is the innermost layer of the eye, has two different types of cells. I guess I have that arrangement somewhere here. So this is the eye structure. This they have kind of highlighted in the box, and that is being enlarged into this retina layer. So you can see cone cells, you can see rod cells. They are called so because these are literally cone shaped, and rod cells, they are literally rod shaped. And these are the different neurons or neuronal network which is taking the signal from this rod cells and cone cell, whichever signal that they are receiving, whether it's a dim light, then rod cell, or color light, then it is cone cell, and so on. And they will pass on that information to the neurons. Neuron will take it to the brain through this nerve-like structure, which you can see here, which is the optic nerve. This part is enlarged, which this brown line, that is the nerve. So that is the rod cells. Cone cells, they are sensitive to bright light and also responsible for color vision. Again, like if you naturally you have to remember this, we know in the daytime, because there is enough light, we are able to see colors very distinctly, and that is the function happening due to the cone cells within the retinal layer. And these cone cells, they contain a pigment called as iodopsin, and which is confined mostly to the yellow spot. I will talk about this yellow spot, what it is, in the next class. For now, we will stop here. I'll just quickly revise these rod cells and cone cells. So rod cells, they are sensitive to the dim light. That means less amount of light, they can still generate a signal, and that's why they are not able to respond to the color. On the contrary, cone cells, they are sensitive to the bright light, and they are responsible for the color vision. And the pigment present in rod cell is rhodopsin. The pigment present in cone cell is iodopsin. Even if you remember just one of them, the other one will come naturally to you. Cone cells will have iodopsin. And this is the structure of this retina layer. Yeah, this part we will see in the next class. If you have any questions so far, you can ask. If not, we will stop here. Does anyone have any question? I hope you were able to follow all of this.